Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. There was a lot of confusion yesterday when an announcement was made that the 121 dockets, which were sent back to the political killings task team, are now going to go to the commission. The dockets were sitting on the desk of General Sibia for months before he was put on special leave, which is now being formalized into a suspension. And once he was suspended, there was some movement on those dockets. And that movement culminated in the announcement that the dockets were going to go back to the political killings task team. So the statement which came about yesterday was a cause of confusion. And I'm recording this on the 3rd of September. The statement was released on the 2nd of September. And there was a lot of confusion. And it also came across as a major reversal because of what was announced last week on Thursday. So let's go over some of the key points of what the statement actually said. So this is what the statement said. The Minister of Police, Professor Firoz Kachalia, called a meeting with the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, General Fani Masemola, on the 1st of September 2025. The purpose was to clarify and affirm their respective roles, with the minister having executive authority and the national commissioner having operational authority, given their shared objectives of building public trust in the South African Police Service and improving morale amongst its members. Minister Kachalia and General Masemola agreed to ensure that the South African Police Service and all of its members support the work of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry into allegations of interference in the criminal justice system and uphold its integrity. The political killings task team dockets will be submitted to the commission in the format that they require. Now, that was the part of the statement which was controversial, topical, and which led to an interesting conversational play for you, which happened on SABC. So what was said in continuation is the following. This is to ensure the integrity of the dockets and to enable the commission to thoroughly investigate all the matters related to its terms of reference. So that's what happened. That was the statement. Then we saw some reporting from Newsroom Africa, which seemed to create the impression that the investigations of the task team, the political killings task team, were effectively suspended. The dockets were all going to go to the commission. Some boxes were going to be put in some car and then they would be sent across. And I was a bit surprised by that reporting and the actual development and the way that it seemed to be going. But that confusion was a little bit clarified. Because when I read the statement, it didn't seem to suggest to me that the dockets would be sent back immediately. And more importantly, I was a little concerned that this was now coming across as the minister directing the commission what to do, what to look at, what documents to hold, what documents to safekeep, which would then lead to the same challenges which the NPA was complaining about when they were saying they need dockets from the Zondo Commission, or not dockets, rather documents from the Zondo Commission to be able to hold people who testified at the Zondo Commission accountable, or people implicated at the Zondo Commission accountable. And they were saying we can't get a hold of those dockets, etc. So it seemed to me like, well, the police minister seems to be, encroaching in the work of the commission and what Madlanga may decide to do or not to do. I mean, the commission is being chaired by a retired constitutional court judge, somebody who understands various principles of law, criminal law, jurisprudence, you name it. He's got a full understanding of it. So if he wants particular documents, he can ask for them, right? And if he has concerns, he can articulate those concerns himself. So for the president and the minister to then be articulating those concerns on behalf of Madlanga, to me, felt peculiar at the very best. It felt peculiar. And, that confusion was somewhat clarified because there was an interview that happened last night on Face the Nation on SABC. And from watching that interview, reflecting on the interview, it seems to me that some people are either confused or they are deliberately misinterpreting what is happening with the dockets. Because this is what the spokesperson for the police said last night on Face the Nation.
Why has the National Police Commissioner agreed to now these dockets being sent to the Madlanga inquiry? What was the rationale behind the decision last week for them to go back to the political killings task team?
But I think there's a misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the statement on your side. I can confirm that all 121 dockets are in KZN. They have been sent back to the political killings task team. The teams are already on the ground. They have started working on the dockets. And let me also clarify that the Madlanga Commission has not pronounced on whether they would require the dockets. As and when they submit that they would require the dockets to be presented before the commission, the dockets will be made available. You'll recall that the National Commissioner announced that the original dockets have been sent back in the best interest of ensuring that the administration of justice continues. Obviously, thinking of the families, the grieving families of those that have been murdered. Of the 121 dockets, 107 are murder-related cases of councillors, party members, traditional leaders. So when the National Commissioner took the decision to take back the dockets, he did so in the interest of justice because he felt that keeping the dockets longer in Pretoria would delay justice. Them gathering dust will not assist us in any way because the work has to continue. You'll recall that work had already begun before the dockets was sent to Pretoria. So it is just for the administration of justice and for the families, most importantly, to get the necessary closure. Remember, the National Commissioner announced that we have made copies of each docket, but he felt that we cannot delay justice any longer by them gathering dust. He felt that we could actually be sued by all those families who are waiting for answers to see justice for their loved ones and so on. So he did that in the best interest, and he consulted with our legal department to say what is the best decision that can be taken. And it was then agreed upon that let the work continue because we cannot wait for the commission to conclude its work. Let the investigations continue so that perpetrators can be arrested. Because when you look at the cases, 107 are murder, about 4 are attempted murder, 2 about pointing of firearm, 2 conspiracy to commit murder. So the bulk of cases are murder-related cases. So those are quite serious cases that need not be left alone. We need to ensure that the work continues so that we can provide the necessary closure to the families.
To me, I think the decision to give back the dockets to the political task team was the right decision to make. And I want to make a side comment here. You know how we've heard about state capture for so long? I think we need to consider a new term, docket capture. Docket capture. And we have to care about it as much as state capture because there's some hoshkari behavior going on here which needs these dockets to be protected from politicians, from criminals, from alleged criminals, and for the findings of those investigations to then be tested in a court of law with criminal sanctions, right? Docket capture. I think we should consider the term. And how I would define it is the following. Docket capture is where politicians and the hoshkari fathers who they are associated with attempt to capture the police services and to prevent investigation and apprehension of any members of their syndicates who are implicated in criminality, be that criminality, government corruption, gun trading, drug trading, any and all of the above. Docket capture. I think that term is necessary. There's a need for this term because it seems there's an attempt, a continuing attempt to freeze and delay progress on the investigations and arrests associated with the 121 dockets, which leads to a legitimate question. What's in those dockets that's so explosive? What's so noxious in those dockets that its whiff is causing concerns in the upper echelons of South African political society? What's in those dockets? What's in there that is causing all of these shenanigans? And I want to say, it seems the media is not so bothered that there are 107 murder dockets, which are sitting, being delayed by political tactics and maneuvers, knowing that those murders have connections to corruption scandals which have led to billions being stolen from state-owned enterprises, from municipalities. Communities have potholes, they have dirty water, they have no security because money keeps being stolen. And every time people try to report and whistleblow, they get killed. It seems to me, or one would assume, that the media would be more perturbed and more robust in fighting against apparent docket capture. But it seems that the media is part of throwing questions and throwing aspersions and actually supporting a slowing down of the delivery of justice. It's a funny time. It's a funny time. And media is behaving in a funny way. It's behaving in a funny way. It's almost behaving like it's part of the hosh curry behavior. Now, let's talk about the interview a little bit. In the interview, some questions were raised about timing. Why now? Why was there a delay, etc.? Let's quickly go over the timeline and think about whether or not the police wasted time since the dockets were taken from the political killings task team and went over to Sibia. And I think it's important just to go over the timeline again as a reminder to ourselves about what has been happening, what has been developing. On the 17th of April 2024, Amand Swat, who was working for a company known as QTech, was murdered after the company that he was working for unearthed corruption related to Transnet and tenders which were going to a company linked to Katiso Molefe and his son. Springs, Simple Springs, were being overcharged, 4,500% increase for millions. So Amand was shot 23 times. It was a case of mistaken identity, actually, with an AK-47 that has now been connected to other murders through ballistic assessment. So that in and of itself is a horrific event, the murder of Amand Swat. In June of 2024, the South African Police Service awarded a tender to Vusimuzi Matlala's medical company for 360 million, a company with no history in providing medical services anywhere, even in an ECD center, in a creche. No ECD experience. They haven't even done, we've got that guy called the Squat King who does squats in public and has got a big nyash for a man. Even he is more deserving of a healthcare tender than a company that was opened by Vusimuzi Matlala, who's a convicted criminal, by the way, was convicted in the early 2000s of crime. All of a sudden, this guy is winning tenders for 360 million to provide healthcare. A tender that was, I think, in the hands of one of the big medical companies in South Africa goes to this guy with no track record, no experience, a long record of brushes with the law, and also who has 2 passports. They saw a passport in his bail application on his device there where there's a passport that he owns that is from Eswatini. These are dubious individuals. Anyway, he got the tender in June of 2024. On the 6th of December 2024, Gauteng Organized Crime Investigation Unit requested assistance to investigate and dismantle a criminal syndicate. General Mkhwanazi sent 10 of the members of the political killings task team to help these people. This group raided the home of a suspect in Gauteng. One arrest was made, and this was the arrest of Katiso Molefe at his Sandton mansion. The same arrest where Malcolm X, not to be confused with the human rights icon Malcolm X, this Malcolm X local Malcolm X, he then called the General Libya, who's the head of the Hawks, to assist Molefe and try to prevent the arrest. He misrepresented some of the facts. The arrest was made. Somehow Katiso Molefe got bail. He's been denied bail this time around, but then he ended up getting bail. But he was arrested at that particular time, right? 6th of December, thereabouts. On the 20th of December, the police raided the Vusi Matlala Cat Protection Services offices. He then sent a message to Brown Mkhotsi saying that he was being harassed by the political killings task team and this Gauteng task team. On the 30th of December, 10 days later, the police investigation unmasked a syndicate involving politicians, law enforcement, lawyers, controlled by drug cartels and so-called business people. I say so-called business people because I don't think we should call these people business people for even a moment, even a second. right? The ballistics that they assessments that they did linked recovered weapons to the murders of artists. They linked the evidence to the murder of Aman Swat. So now everything was coming together. The web that was weaved by these Hoshkari fathers, their Hoshkari grandfathers, all of this stuff was beginning to actually make sense. And the net was closing in. The next day, on the 31st of December, 2024, then Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who is currently also a police minister on special leave, ordered the disbandment of the political killings task team, saying that they had served his purpose. That's what he said. Then in March of 2025, General Sibiya got a hold of the dockets. And the 5th of March, same month, General Mkhwanazi went to Parliament and raised all the issues that he shared with the public later to the police committee in Parliament. And Minister Mkhunu merely denied that he knows Brown Mkhotsi, denied a lot of the things that were being raised by General Mkhwanazi. There was no movement. On the 6th of July, General Mkhwanazi then came to the public and shared the findings of his task team. He shared the names of people who seem involved in the workings of the syndicate, called General Sibiya a criminal and said a police officer cannot work with the criminal, and shared all of the allegations that he and his team had been investigating. Right? On the 21st of July, Katiso Molefe was then arrested for the murder of DJ Somebody. The commission was then also announced around about the same time, 2 weeks after the 6th of July. Right? So, as you can see, there were no delays here. If you think about the timeline, this is actually fast police action. If you think about the day Aman Swat was shot down, all of the things that were then discovered. And it seems that the 20 December raid at the Cat Protection Services office actually helped the police come up with evidence that they could then use to build their case and to actually do further investigations. Katiso Molefe, Vusimuzi Matlala, all of the people who seem to be involved in this. We've seen progress. These two men right now, one of them is still fighting for bail. The other one has been denied bail. We've seen the extent of their activities. The allegations against them are quite serious, and the case against them seems very strong, very compelling. They should not actually be in society. I don't know how we can make the argument that there was slow movement, either by Masemola, by Mkhwanazi. To me, it seems the police worked fast to reverse and counteract the political interference. After the police minister was placed on special leave of another kind, General Sibiya was also placed on special leave of another kind. And now he's facing suspension. And now the dockets have been moved, recovered. I don't think that's slow movement. I think that's fast movement. It's September now, but these developments have happened quite fast, if you ask me. The second thing I want to say is that I think we must remember that the decision to disband the task team was not rational and was ultra vires, which means it was unlawful. The reason why I'm saying it was irrational and ultra vires is, firstly, we have seen a continuation of political assassinations. So the idea that the task team had served its purpose while political killings were continuing, to me, is a non sequitur. You can't say that as we are seeing municipal managers, we're seeing auditors and accountants being killed for finding financial irregularities, that no, there's no need for a political killings task team anymore. That to me is not logical. The idea that it was not effective is also one which is not rational when we know that there are several men who've been arrested who have been implicated in these dangerous activities, these criminal activities. Men who were in conversations with politicians claiming that the task team was harassing them. To me, it seems that the task team was being too effective, to the point where now ministers are calling people before the arrest, former ministers are calling people before the arrest. The decision to disband the task team by the minister, in my view and my reading of the administrative law and the various acts, was not his to make. It's an operational issue. Management of the police and operational matters lie within the jurisdiction of the National Commissioner, not the minister. So the decision was irrational, and the commissioner has said he didn't sign. He didn't sign. If he signed, where's the evidence that he signed? Where's the document that he signed? There's none. So I don't think we should give too much weight to the disbanding or the so-called disbanding. The timing of the disbandment also is something which cannot be ignored. There's no coincidence in politics. None whatsoever, zero, zilch. Think about the timing. The decision was made on New Year's Eve. Festive season. Everybody is away. People are not really focused on the news. The national commissioner himself was on leave. The country would not have had a full media contingent following various stories because journalists, all of these reporters, these analysts, they're also on leave. They're also Cape Route, where in their various homes, celebrating, making time with their families. So that timing, New Year's Eve. Who's even sober on New Year's Eve? Who's sober? Who's even thinking about political killings on that date? So the disbanding was weird. And the disbanding happening just days after some major arrests, to me, suggests an ulterior motive, which in and of itself is grounds for review under PAJA, which is the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act. At least that's what they taught us in law school. I went to Wits Law School. That's what they were teaching me, that when it seems as if there's an ulterior motive, that's grounds for review. And I keep hearing people talking about the allegations against General Masemola and General Mkhwanazi. There's an argument that has been made, or rather an assertion that has been repeated. And whenever you hear an assertion being repeated often, it's part of trying to manufacture consent if that assertion is not backed up by analysis, by evidence. That allegation that has been repeated ad nauseum is the following: that the task team A was acting as a law unto itself, B was abusing funds. These funds are often referred to as a slush fund. That choice of words suggests that there's a negative connotation to any funds that this team was using. A team that's working well, if they have to use certain funds, why is it slush? Why is it not just use of money? So my question to the people who are saying those particular things is as follows. Where is the proof of any of this? Whether it's coming from Paul O'Sullivan, Mary DeHaas, or being repeated by journalists, where is the proof? We need evidence. Bufagaz, that means evidence for my international viewers. Mkhwanazi has shared the track record of his team. He has shared evidence of what they found. We've heard from investigating officers in the bail applications what evidence they have. We've also seen convictions of people who, for instance, were involved in the assassination of Sindiso Makaka. So we've seen stuff from his side which corroborates and augments what he presented on the 6th of July. Where is the empirical proof of the allegations against the task team? This, to me, as it stands, comes across as a fallacy of false equivalence or equivocation, right? Where there's an attempt to create an impression that all of the people who are involved in the story on all sides are corrupt. They're no good guys. Everyone is problematic. It actually looks to me right now that there are some good guys. And I would say the good guys are the ones trying to arrest the hitmen, to arrest Hoshkari grandfathers, paymasters, to get to the bottom of who has been taking money from the state, overcharging for tenders, and what are their connections with the criminal world, and what are their connections to the politicians. Those people, they come across to me as good guys. How are they the bad guys in all of this? Why are we trying to create a false equivalence? Because they didn't follow protocol. The protocol which is now being abused to try to delay everything. So I think the media has to take a stand here in the way that they've taken stands before. You can't make it seem as if, they're bad guys on both sides. How? It also comes across to me as the fallacy of poisoning the well. Poisoning the well is a fallacy. It's a form of an ad hominem fallacy where you attack the person. But this one happens where you say something bad about someone before they've even made their presentation or argument. So you create a perception that they're already not honest or dishonest and that they're up to something. Poisoning the well. This is what seems to be happening here. So that every time Mkhwanazi speaks, you think, but what about you, Mkhwanazi? Can you see how it works? Something here is very funny and very strange. Peculiar, odd. I mean, if this was Zuma or Malema or Zweli Mkhize or the Guptas implicated in all of this, the media would be clamoring for arrests, would have special websites. They would be praising General Mkhwanazi as a whistleblower. But more and more, it seems like they're the ones casting aspersions on him. It seems as if they're the ones in favor of delay and dithering. They used to attack Zuma for, what do they call it? Stalingrad method. Like, Zuma, Stalingrad. Why doesn't he want to face his day in law? Or in court? Why doesn't he want to face his day in court? So why don't we want these dockets to go to court? Are we now in favor of Stalingrad? I'm just asking. We don't even know when the commission will start at this point, and there's all of this idea that the commission will protect the dockets, etc. I think I'm happy that the dockets are staying in the hands of the task team, which was doing its work. It was working. It was catching criminals. Everything else that has happened is an attempt to stall them, to put them in a pit stop. That's what it looks like to me. 2 months have passed since the Mkonazi press conference. We still don't know when the commission will start. But think about this. 9 months have passed since the December arrests. So my question is, if the Guptas were the ones in these dockets, what would the media say? What would big business say? Save South Africa. Remember when that was formed? Defend democracy, etc. What would they say? What would the foundations say? Everybody's silent these days. Everybody now is pushing for procedure. When the Gupta leaks happened, you know how much procedure was violated there? You know how many laws were broken for that thing, those Gupta leaks to be made public? We were told it's in the public interest for these documents to be shared with you. So to hell with Gupta's privacy, to hell with this, to hell with that. We were even getting access to Jacob Zuma's medical records. Privileged information was all over the newspapers. Now, the same newspapers seem to be, slow walking. Something that they historically ran towards. What the hosh is going on here? For real. Tupac wasn't lying. South Africa is a movie, a drama, a series, a telenovela. Really? Because what's going on?